If we have a patient that has been registered, we can go to the search button, and in here we look for the patient list until we find the patient we want to open. Once we selected the patient, we can select a new exam for that patient, or we can open the patient to see the measurements. We can also delete the patient or enter the post-operative information to optimize the A constant for a given intraocular lens. In here, we are in the acquisition mode, but as you see, the screen is blank because we are not really making an acquisition. We're going to see the measurements that we took on that patient. The first thing we see is the corneal topography map. And the corneal topography map has many components. We can see the absolute, in which most of the colors are green, which means that the cornea is not too irregular, or we can go to the normalize. In the normalize, we can adjust to half a diopter, or 0.75 of a diopter, or a quarter of a diopter. And you see that the steps are closer at the. Also, we can see the axial, which gives us the idea of the power of the cornea, or the tangential, which gives us more the real shape of the cornea. On the other side, we have the three zones that the Aladdin measures: 2 millimeter zone, 4 millimeter zone, and 6 millimeter zone. These zones can be also changed to 3, 5, and 7 millimeter instead, if we configure that in the menu. The first element is the keratometry, and we have in blue one of the Ks, in red the other K, and then the average and the axis. The next window shows us we have astigmatism at 2 millimeter and 4 millimeter from the center of the cornea. We have the asphericity, the spherical aberrations, the curvature irregularities, and the asymmetry, which is the difference between the center of the cornea and the visual path of the patient. To see if the patient has high irregularities in the cornea, such as a keratoconus, we have the information in the AK window. The pupillometry shows us the difference between the mesopic and the photopic positions of the pupil. In here we can see the blue ring is the mesopic, and the red ring, which is smaller, is the photopic because the pupil is constricted. We can incorporate or remove map, rings, or eye by pressing the display buttons in here. If we want to see the profile, we can see here the blue, which is the steepest, and the red, which is the flattest keratometry, and in here we have the average. The next set of windows be the aberrometry, or wavefront measurement of the eye. The instrument allows us to select the diameter we want to see the aberrometries. In a small pupil, such as we have very few aberrometries, and the entire pupil looks green or with very few colors. As the pupil opens up in a mesopic condition, we can see the aberrometries, the aberrations appearing on the side. This can be an indication for certain types of intraocular lenses or an indication not to implant certain lenses due to the aberrations that the eye might have. The instrument takes 6 axial length measurements in each shot. So in here we have all the measurements, and we can go from one to the other. And we can see that there is a very clean space between the cornea and the retina, because the Aladdin, using low coherence interferometry, can penetrate through opacities or cataracts without having any in the. This is the anterior chamber measurement, which is corneal thickness, central corneal thickness, anterior chamber depth, and lens thickness. All these 3 measurements are performed by interferometry, which gives a high degree. Dynamic pupillometry is also obtained in order to see the movement of the pupil when it adapts to mesopic or conditions. You can do it once at a time, and you see how the pupil dilates and constricts, or you can do it in a dynamic mode with a little video. The 2 crosses, red, mark the decentration from the optical path of the eye, the apex of the cornea. The white-to-white gives us the corneal diameter, and is specifically used when we are considering the implantations of anterior chamber intraocular lens, such in the case of refractive lenses or piggyback lenses to correct unpredicted outcomes in surgery. The center of the line marks the apex of the cornea, whereas the center of the Placido rings shows the optical path. If the parameters of the white-to-white measurements are not correct or need some correction, you can open and you can move the markers in and out according to what your other measurements may indicate, and you can adjust this precisely to your needs. Once you correct it, you keep, and the measurements are according to the parameters that you enter.